we can plan to create something, but if we don't have the self-worth to support the thing that we're planning for, essentially we don't give ourselves the permission to be happy. Psychologists call this happiness anxiety. Progress is an inside job. Everything on your external, everything outside of you is just a mirror to your internal game. Where do I have opportunities to become worthy of my desires?
What if you could build a business in the modern world as big or as small as you want without having to compromise the things that were the most important to you in the very beginning? This is the Wealthy Consultant Talks podcast with Taylor Welch and Mike Walker, as they share with you today their learning lessons from stories in their experiences over the past 10 to 15 years and share with you right here, right now. Let's get into it.
What I want to talk about today is ways that you can set your life up so that you can move effortlessly through both the good times and the hard times. And I've posted about this before, but I've never gone deep in this dichotomy. Here's what a dichotomy is. A dichotomy is an opposite ends of a spectrum. Typically, a false dichotomy is when you feel like you're choosing one or the other, but it really can be both ends. It's just opposite ends of the spectrum. So here are some false dichotomies that are very easy to fall into. Have you ever heard that phrase, nice guys finish last?
Yep.
It's based on a false dichotomy. So you can either be nice or you can be successful. Mm-hmm. You can either be a great mother or you can have a big business. It's a false dichotomy. You can either have a really great client-centric organization or you can have scale. These are false dichotomies that really force us to the edges, and they remove our ability to create both ends. And so if we want to create a both and scenario in our businesses, in our families, in our achievement, in a person's life, in your business, what's overtaught and overtrained is this idea of planning. How do I create a plan? How do I create a plan for my life? This is the grind, the hustle, but it's also the thinking, and it's the tactical side of it's the mental game of how do I reverse engineer from where I am now to where I want to be. Okay. But the problem is when you are overly focused on the plan, when you do not hit that plan, you tend to elicit feelings like shame. How many of you have ever missed a target? And rather than thinking, well, this is an opportunity for me to learn, you think, well, what's wrong with me? This is a shame. If you're overly emphasized on the plan, you have shame. This is also, you got energy here on this plan, which is you're chasing. You're going to chase it, energy. And then a lot of people who are overly emphasizing the plan have anxiety, there's worry. It's this idea of, if I do not hit this plan, what will happen to me? And what does that say about me? Increasing anxiety and worry, things that you're not necessarily excited to live through. The other side that we don't think about is this idea of permission. And when you get into permission, you get the opposite. You get the ability to attract things through your self-worth. You're relatively unbothered. So this is the thing. Think about it this way. We can plan to create something, but if we don't have the self-worth to support the thing that we're planning for, essentially we don't give ourselves the permission to be happy. Psychologists call this happiness anxiety. It's a real thing. It's like happiness anxiety.
Wow.
Where it's like, okay, you say you find somebody amazing and you fall in love with them, but you don't believe that you are actually worthy of being loved. And so everything that this other person does, you're filtering it through, like you think they're manipulating you, or they're just pretending, or they're cheating, or something dumb. And you're constantly putting them through these little micro tests to prove that they love you because you don't feel like you're worthy of being loved. Hang with me for a second. This is happiness anxiety. And let's say that that person loves you back. Shocker. And they stubborn, perseverant. Like, no, I'm going to outlast you because I do love you. And they make it through your little game and they jump through your hoops. You're so committed to this idea of not being lovable that you begin to think, well, maybe they do love me, and maybe I've settled. Maybe my bar is too low. Maybe they're not worthy of me because the person that I want to be with probably would not love me the way that this person loves me. We create this self-fulfilling looping of, well, I don't deserve this. And so if it happens, the plan worked, but you don't have permission to be happy. And so therefore you will reject it.
Wow.
People call this the upper limit. Gay Hendricks calls this upper limit problem. It's where there's a limit that you're no longer willing to break through because you don't feel like you deserve it. And if we don't feel like we deserve it, we will not give our permission to stay there. Okay. So permission is about alignment. It's about self-worth, identity. It's about allowing the things that we want to not only happen, but to stay. Here's another thing. Some of us that get really mature in this game, we get sophisticated. You know, like you're in arena, so you hear us talk about it, and you're like, yeah. I've fixed it. And you look around, and there's a loophole that happens when you have something like happiness anxiety. You haven't given yourself permission. Maybe you're not going to push the person away. Maybe it's acceptable as long as you're just not happy. Well, I'll keep a little bit of business success, and it's okay as long as I'm not happy inside of that success. And we reject the things that would bring us ultimate happiness because we don't feel like we deserve to have them. An example in the business would be the exact same thing. You get a great client, or you're on the verge of getting a great client, and the problem with getting this client is that you wouldn't be worried about money, but you don't deserve to not be worried about money. You don't deserve to have financial security. You don't deserve to be in a position where life is good. Now, we're okay if life is okay, but we're not okay if life is good because we haven't earned that. So the plan is about earning and chasing. Permission is about receiving and inheriting. You are allowed to be happy because you deserve to be happy. So here's a quick idea for us to think this through. We need both. I'm not an advocate of like, don't plan anything, just walk through life. Nothing exists. Don't drink, don't eat. Yesterday never happened. That's dumb. What I'm a fan of is having both. And what are the things that I'm going to accrue and achieve through my own effort? And then what are the things that I'm going to give myself permission to receive? So here's the difference in these examples. I'll just use my examples. What am I planning to do? Well, the reality is I need more than 3 bullet points, but let's just like map it out right now. I'm going to write 2 books this year. I'm going to do 22 events this year. I'm going to buy a Porsche 911. I'm going to get a Porsche 911 this year. There are things that I'm planning on doing. But then in permission, what you should have is something totally different. I'm going to give myself permission to be loved, truly loved. What does it mean to be loved? It means that you don't have to actually do anything to earn it. And me and my wife are working through this. Like, I'll be honest with you. We're still working through this because I have such a performance identity. You know what I told my coach last week? I was on a call with one of my coaches, and I said, when I do not produce, I feel vulnerable. I feel terrified because when I'm in production, I can handle anything. You can take everything away from me. I'll just produce myself right back. But when I'm not producing, when it's a Saturday morning, I'm supposed to be at donuts, or when my wife and I are on vacation, there's this paranoia that happens because I'm not producing, which means I'm vulnerable. I cannot relax. So this is the next thing, giving myself permission to relax. No vulnerability. There's no vulnerability in relaxation. And so what is it that we believe about ourselves and about our environments that prevent us from being able to relax? You don't have to produce on vacation. What is it about us that keeps us perpetually going? And then a third thing that I wrote down is permission to dream. Do you know how low there are periods in my life when I've literally lowered my dreams down to match my circumstances? Mm-hmm. And so you have to have boldness to actually dream. And when you get a real dream, a real one, you'll know that it's real because you have to change for that dream to be possible. If there's no shift in identity required, the dream is too small. Mm-hmm. And so I'm giving myself permission to dream bigger. And the reason that requires permission is because you have to allow yourself to visualize a better future for you to really dream. And we're not going to spend a ton of time on this, but this is something you should definitely work out in private. Definitely work out through the weeks because it doesn't matter how hard you work. If you over rely on your plan and you do not give yourself permission to be happy or to enjoy it or to do the things you've chosen, then you will perpetually spin. You're constantly putting out fires. You'll just destroy the progress you make and you're constantly starting over. Many of you have felt that way. Let's dive deeper into this, into 3 levels of progress. The first level of progress is your ability to think and solve. To think and to solve. The second level of progress is your ability to have and to keep. And the third level of progress is your ability to be and grow. All right, so here we go. The ability to think is level 1. If you can think, you can solve almost any problem. Except for if you do not give yourself permission, then you'll constantly be acquiring, losing, acquiring, losing, acquiring, losing. And so the second level down under this is your ability to have and to keep. So I'll tell you this from experience, it's very different. Having a 7-figure business is very different than keeping a 7-figure business. You know, they say it's not how much you make, it's how much you
keep. Now, I disagree with that. I think that's stupid, just for the record. Because if you keep 100% of $10, it doesn't really matter. You have to make it before you keep it. So people are like, oh, it's not how much you make, it's how much you keep. It's like, yep, you're poor. I can tell because rich people don't say that. You have to have it first to keep it. So, that's just, whatever. But to keep something requires you to have an identity level that feels worthy of hanging on to it, or else there's self-sabotage. You know what self-sabotage really is when you have an internal belief or a value system that is conflicting with something that you want. So if I want to be rich, and being rich requires me to work hard, but I have an internal value that more important than being rich is being safe. There are times in my life when I will self-sabotage because the thing I need to do to become rich is violating the thing I need to do to be safe. Everybody got it? Mm-hmm. So you can't overpower self-sabotage. You have to fix the identity underneath the self-sabotage that makes it go away. And then the third level is the ability to be and to grow. Why is this important? Because progress is an inside job. It's an inside game. Everything on your external, everything outside of you is just a mirror to your internal game. So what will get in the way of progress
is thinking through fears, thinking through constantly obsessed with risk, constantly obsessed with what could go wrong, constantly obsessed with why you have to do this to prove to someone else that you're worthy of. And the external accrual of wealth is a facade. And if you get something but you didn't deserve to get it, you'll have to give it back. So this is the third level of the game. And it's probably the most important. How does this patch into everything else? Is a Venn diagram. And I'm gonna just take you through this really fast because I don't want to run out of time. I want to do some Q&A. So we have think. This is the first game right over here. We have. This is the second game. Have and keep. And then at the bottom, we have be and grow. Here's why people get it confused all of the time. For you to make money, we're using think, have, the first two levels. But how many people do we know who make a lot of money and they're not happy?
Definitely seen it.
Happiness only comes when you have all three. When you have the ability to be worthy, make money, and solve problems. So here are some questions. I want you to just write these down real quick. Do I believe I can solve any problem that comes my way? Do I believe I can solve any problem that comes my way? Number two, can I prevent those problems if I think about them? Number three, do I believe that if I solve enough problems, I will get what I want? Do I believe that if I solve enough problems, I will get what I want? By the way, these questions, I just want you to know I designed these questions. Like these are real questions that will change the way you process life. So take these seriously. Number four, do I know what I want? And can I describe it from multiple points of view? What is multiple points of view? I'll tell you. When I'm visualizing right now, and I'll just be transparent, I'm just now getting clarity again for the first time in 2 years. So I've been in like war mode for 2 years. And the funny thing about war mode is if we're not careful, we'll get addicted to war. And then everything's a war. And then we don't know how to dream anymore because we're just worried about the next threat. So you got to be careful here. You got to kind of purge that central nervous system. And, I've been fighting threats for so long that now when I'm thinking about what I want, default state is what could go wrong, not what do I want. And so easy to pivot right back into war mode rather than into dream mode. But when I'm starting to do this ritualistically again, where I'm visualizing what I want and getting clarity, then here's an interesting thing. You can visualize something from like your point of view. So like, this is what I want. I'm visualizing it. I'm living it. Oh, it's glorious and beautiful and it's amazing. And then you switch gears and now I want to visualize the same thing from Mike's point of view. Mm-hmm. How does Mike see me achieving the things that I'm achieving? And then you get a secondary point of view.
That's powerful.
Then I'm going to visualize it through one of our clients. And you get a tertiary point of view. And all of a sudden you stack up so much evidence in the mind that it's happening that your mind just accepts it. It's like, well, this is happening. Sometimes it is. I'm just going to throw this out and it's going to blow all of your brains up. And then we've got to keep going back into questions. But I'm sorry, I have to. Never mind, I'm not going to do it. Let's keep going through questions. Number 5.
Open loop.
Number 5. Do I deserve these things that I want right now? Why or why not? Do I deserve these things that I want right now? Why or why not? And number 6, where do I have opportunities to become worthy of my desires? Okay, here's what I was going to say earlier. When we have a vision of ourselves, when we have visualization patterns of ourselves, which by the way, all of us do, you all have an internal compass that is how you view yourself. All of us have it. Whether you pay attention to it or not, all of us have it. If you don't pay attention to it, then you're just getting your cues from the world around you. But we all have it. It is easier for your subconscious to map the reality of our situation to our visualization than it is to change our visualization. So here's what this means is if you accidentally accept an inferior version of yourself that doesn't have the wealth, that doesn't have the influence, that doesn't have the books, your subconscious will disagree with the reality around you, and it will warp reality down to meet your version of yourself that it believes you are. The hard work is not going out and creating progress. That's easy. Read a book. Done. That's easy. The hard work is getting your interpretation of yourself up to the level where you feel worthy of keeping all of that stuff. Only then will you find this grind and hustle flow culture of like not being necessary. It really is like you can achieve more than anyone else without working as hard as everyone else if you can fix your compass. You can get this version of yourself that you believe you are up, then what your subconscious does, it goes out and it says, I disagree with this reality. This reality is not real. I reject it. And it will lift your reality up to the level of your internal compass. The problem with that is it will do the opposite as well. So you take a really cool client, a really big client, your internal compass goes, I disagree with this. This is too easy. I'm going to set some shit on fire. I'm going to not show up. I'm going to not go to that event that I agreed to speak to. Because why? Because life's a little too easy right now. And I got too much momentum. This is dangerous. This is literally how self-sabotage is like. This starts actually affecting every part of your life. But we got a little bit too much money in the bank. So I'm going to make a bad investment, but I'm going to justify it with some bullshit math that I don't actually believe in, but I'm just going to go ahead and make the investment. I need to lower down a little bit of my liquidity right now. And this is where the internal compass becomes a massive thermostat. It's setting and regulating the heat of your entire life. All right, so we got the 6 questions. Mike, how do we feel? How do you feel, sir?
I love that, man. You brought the heat today, man.